Well, here we are at Bass Pro Shops, and who doesn't like to visit Rancho Cucamonga? It is such a great place. Got to meet so many great friends and people. It's always a pleasure. But today, my son Philip is giving an outstanding seminar on surf fishing. Can't wait to hear it. Here he is.
My name's Phil Jr. I'm going to be doing the seminar for you guys today on surf fishing. A little fun fact here is we came to Bass Pro Shops intentionally with no gear. We wanted to see if we could find everything we needed here in this store for a good day of surf fishing. The only thing I didn't bring up here was line and a couple other rods, just because I thought they'd get in the way, but it's all here. So everything I'm going to go over here with you today is in this store. Other than that little history about me, I grew up fishing, saltwater fishing all the way till I was about 19 years old. My brother ended up going away to college. That's where we found freshwater bass fishing, so we got really in depth into that. Fished FLW, Wild West Bass Trail, and then a couple local tournaments as well. We fished for a local club as well. I'm not standing up here saying I'm God's gift to fishing. As you guys can see, I'm not. I'm just a guy that loves fishing. So if you guys think of anything you can do better with any of the techniques I'm giving you, please shout it, raise your hand, and we'll address it and go over it, because I actually learn a lot from just my conversations with you guys. Other than that, let's get into, and I'm also going to be running around to try and make him move around because I'm on fire. I would use surf fishing. I'm not rich by no means, so I take my freshwater rods for surf fishing. That's just, it just works. It translates good. If you talk to these pro surf fishermen, they use these big, long spinning rods or big, long conventional rods, and they'll do it that way. Yes, that works, and it's probably a lot better to do it that way, but I find it that my drop shot rod works just as well for fishing corvina and sand crabs in the surf. I use my bait casters, the drop shot flukes for halibut in the surf. That works just as good. It all translates back and forth. It works very well. First thing we'll talk about, bait fishing, corvina. Everyone know what a corvina is? Everyone fished them before? For you guys at home, just so you guys know, you don't have to cast far when you're fishing corvina. They're up in the surf. They're coming to where their back's all the way to the water, digging for sand crabs in the surf. So if you see one that's about ankle deep, you're good. Make sure you get these shoes down. Those shoes, just so you guys, I just did that so I can show the shoes. I like to fish my corvina with a Carolina rig. Everyone know what a Carolina rig is? For you guys at home, you take sliding egg sinker, you throw that on your main line, tie a swivel to your main line, and you run a leader. I like to use, like, a lot of guys go real light. And the lighter line you use, you'll get more bites. It'll produce more bites, but you're not going to be able to horse them. You got to really play that fish. So a lot of guys will use 4-pound test. Patrick and I, we go down to the beach. We like to fish it 6, 8. If the bite's real good, 10 to 12. And you can just rope them. I like to use itty bitty hooks. They have very, very sensitive mouths. So if they feel that hook coming through the sand crab, a lot of times you'll see them inhale it, spit it out real quick. Tiny hooks so you can hide that bait in there. These are, I don't even know like the size. I just look for tiny hooks. But this is size 8. Bury that hook in your sand crab. My favorite sand crab's a soft shell with eggs, if you can find those. That orange on the bottom of them is really, really good. Throw it out there. I'll put it in my rod. It'll start going down with the tide going out, receding. I'll give it some slack and let it go out a little more. I your bait longer than 5 minutes. I like to kind of get a fresh bait in and out all the time. And bait fishing is not my forte. We'll get into it, but I'm a lure guy. I like to cover water. A lot of times the corvina, you'll feel that initial bite and then they're just screaming back out to the deep. So just throw it in gear. You don't need to swing on it or anything. Kind of just a nice soft sweeping motion. Get a bang in your rod and you got that fish. We've caught corvina on lures as well. Here we go. Crocodiles work good for corvina. We caught them on that one, especially during grunion run. Crocodiles are? That it kind of Not my go-to. I will throw it, but these are definitely my go-to when I'm fishing for trying to replicate a bait fish. That mackerel pattern and anchovy pattern on your crocodiles. Let's stick. I can't stay away from the lures. I fish Carolina rig when I'm fishing Corvina. Now also, if it's real slack tide, I don't have too much surge going on, I'll fly line it. No weight at all, just straight line it. Same thing, they eat that bait in deep water. Throw it gear, sweep motion, you got the fish. Play your fish with the waves. For all species of fish you're fishing, if it's going out, give him less pressure so he doesn't pop you off. With bait, these rubs work really good for surf perch, and you fish it on a Carolina rig. I'll up my sinker on that just so I can get a long cast out there. I'm not fishing it like a crocodile where it's constant motion. I'm kind of reeling, pause, nice and slow so it kind of glides across the bottom. Murders the surf perch in Mexico, murders the surf perch up in Pismo. It's a really, really good technique. You won't get like your bigger surf perch like if you're fishing a crocodile or one of these jerk baits, but you'll get numbers. Surf perch. Any shark fishermen here? Anyone want to catch a shark off the beach? No? Okay, leopard sharks. I think right now they're spawning, so it's really good this time of year. What I used to do when I was younger, 20, I'd go to the pier, catch myself fresh mackerel. And I'm talking mackerel like about that big. Perfect to just split in half. You got two baits now. And I'll set them up on a pyramid sinker. I love these pyramid sinkers just because... Exactly. They have those other sinkers that have the spikes coming off them as well. Those are good. I've seen a lot of guys use them, but the pyramid sinkers, they're cheaper and it does just as good a job. If you're fishing strictly, I know a lot of guys that go down there, they just want to pull on stuff. He's one of them. Bat rays will come and eat your bait. Stingrays, if you're trying to avoid that, put a little piece of styrofoam on your hook. It'll float your bait up off the bottom and it'll keep you in the sharky territory. When I was younger, I didn't have a lot of money, so I'd go to Big 5. And a lot of guys will fish wire leader when they're fishing sharks down there. I'd go to Big 5 and ask for all the tennis racket wire they weren't using, because that turns into a 150-pound test. And I'd take that tennis racket wire, tie a swivel on one end, and I'd tie a big pyramid sinker on the other end, and I'd hang it on my wall for 24 hours so it would straighten it out, because it's all coiled up. It's really good leader, and it's free. I don't know if they'd still do that now. I'm sure they would. They're just going to throw it away. But that ended up being my leader back in the day. Yeah. Yeah, no, yeah. But fresh mackerel, the way to go. I'd always get my big leopards on that. And I also caught a big soup fin doing that, which was really cool. I've never seen one. Good question. I'm using a 9/0 hook, circle hook. So if you want to hand that around, sir, you're going to hold on to everything. And that's just, I like to call it beer fishing. Throw your bait out there, don't worry about it. You got a cooler beer, you're sitting there having a couple cold ones, and wait for that bite. You'll know when it's a leopard shark because it takes off and it's trying to rip your rod out of that rod holder.
I do a lot of the shark fishing, so
okay.
I'm trying to go tomorrow.
Where do you go?
Like Costa Chica or Huntington Beach.
Oh, those are two prime spots. Are you shark fishing specifically, or are you?
I'm trying to tomorrow, so I came here. I heard I'm part of the pro club here.
Okay.
They said you guys were going to be here, so
Hell yeah.
I showed up at the right time.
Yes, you did, man. Well, if you ever get my honey hole for leopards, do you know where Rat Beach is? It's also known as Torrance Beach. The locals call it Rat Beach. It's the beach right between Redondo and Palos Verdes.
Okay, yeah.
You go 3 lifeguard towers past where the boardwalk ends, and it's money there. And if you're fishing leopards, you just want to be close to any inshore kelp, because that's where they're all going to hang out, where they're chilling. They're patrolling the beach when they're feeding. There's also really good thresher sharks off those beaches there. You see the guys catching them off the pier all the time.
I've got stuff at like Tower 25 and Costa Chica.
Okay, yeah.
The biggest leopard I got was like 3.5 feet.
Hell yeah.
Still want bigger. I know they're bigger.
They get big, man. They're not white sharks, but they're
They're like 6 feet.
oh yeah, yeah.
I heard a couple guys catching, I think it was like 3-4 foot threshers off the shore.
Yeah.
Away from no structure or anything.
They like the open water. Those threshers are just in tight. But the only thing is, when you're fishing off the shore, you got to get your bait a little farther out than your leopard shark baits for threshers. But that's rad.
How far do you go for leopards?
For leopards, I'm going like 20 feet past where the waves are breaking. So it's kind of on the backside of that. And you'll see like your smaller leopard sharks up in the surf line there cruising. So.
Right where the water breaks down.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. That's rad, man. If you ever do get a chance, head down to Rat Beach, man. That place is off the hook.
Got nothing to do tomorrow, so I'm trying to decide.
Yeah. Now, if you guys are going to fish for those rays, don't put that styrofoam on your hook. Put it on the bottom. You can catch giant bat rays. It's fun, especially for like kids to go down there and give it a shot to pull on something, man. Exactly. Give them that rod for 10 minutes, but then you're going to have to reel it in. From there, let's go back to our more soft plastics. We got sand crabs. I am not a big fan of using the soft plastic sand crab. I brought it up here as a visual for you guys to see if you guys have never seen a sand crab in your life, what they look like. But as everyone knows what a sand crab looks like, guys at home, folks at home, that's a sand crab. I like the real stuff. We'll transition from there. Everyone know what a fish finder rig is? No? Cool. That's a smaller, I like to use a smaller pyramid sinker for that. And basically what you do is you're tying two dropper loops and then your sinker's at the bottom. So you're gonna basically have about a foot between the two hooks, hook here, and it's called a fish finder rig because you can put two different baits on there. Yeah, yep. So you're putting two different baits on there. So if you don't know how the bite is, do not recommend this for shark fishing. That could be a whole problem in itself. So I would fish bloodworm on top, sand crab on the bottom, see which one gets bit, and if my sand crab gets bit, I'll throw it back out with two sand crabs, see if that's what they're keying in on. If I don't get bit, I'll change it up, leave a sand crab on, I'll throw a sandworm on there. Just helps you kind of dial in what the fish are feeding on, what the forage is, what's going on down there. But I'll do that when we're fishing for spot fin croaker. Do you guys all know what spot fin are? They get up to about 12 pounds, Dad? About 12 pounds. They're pretty big for in the surf, man. And they're real cool. They got this real bitchin' little black dot on their gill plate, and they pull like hell, but I mainly catch those fish on bait. I don't really, you'll get the off chance you get one on a crocodile or something like that, but you mainly get them on sandworms, bloodworms, lugworms, or your sand crabs or mussels. They're further out, they're kind of in a little tighter, they're beyond the breakers, but they're in tighter than your leopard sharks, and you just throw it in a rod holder, let it sit. And they taste pretty damn good too. They're really good for fish tacos and ceviche. Going from there, Berkeley has got like a monopoly on surf fishing baits, man, because their stuff's really good. So if you can't get lugworms or sandworms or anything, these all kind of fill that void. A really good spot, if you guys are in the Seal Beach area, if you need fresh live bait, is Big Fish Bait and Tackle. They have really damn good bait, and it's there every freaking morning. Ghost shrimp, lugworms, bloodworms, mussels, anything you can think of, they got it. And they open pretty early because they're a surf fishing shop. They got everything else you need, but that live bait there, you can go in there and get early in the morning and get to your spot before that sun comes up. So shout out to Big Fish for doing that for us local anglers. Am I missing anything on that bait, Dad?
Sandworms, digging them up.
Sandworms. You guys ever dig up sandworms? They're actually not in where your waves are coming up to cover the sand. They're in that drier part of the sand, and all you got to do is look for little circles or little holes in the sand. That's where you find your sandworms, and a shovel is recommended because they can get kind of deep. The only issue I have with sandworms is they're really, really skinny. So you need about 6 to 8 of them to put on one hook to get a good presentation out there. I haven't experimented with it enough. The one time I did experiment with it, I had 2 big boxes of bloodworms from Big Fish, and they ate the bloodworms just as good. So if you can get bloodworms and they're on that sandworm, I think you can get them on your blood. You don't have to put in the effort for that. I like. I like to ball them up just like an earthworm. So if you're fishing your earthworms, I like to just run that hook through them as many times as I can, just to where there's a little bit of worm wiggling at the end. So it makes it a lot harder for that fish to come up and rob you.
What about your sand crab?
Sand crab, I actually got a video on that, but sand crab, I like to run it. If you're looking at a sand crab, you can see the two eyes up in the front, and then it butts at the end. And if it's a female, it's got those orange eggs. I'll run that hook through the back to where the point's coming out and facing backwards. The head's facing this way. It's coming up through the butt and out that way. I'll show you a video after this. I got actually an instructional video on that. Any other questions, guys? Am I going too fast? Okay. So we're gonna go to lures now. This is I love throwing a lure because I can cover a lot of water doing that. And the fish I'm after, whether it be halibut, yellowfin croaker, even the occasional corvina, they tend to be a lot bigger when you're throwing a lure at them. Crocodiles, I fish a couple different ways. I'll burn it, and when you guys first start throwing a lure down there, you got to figure out the speed that they're eating their baits at. So I always start with a fast retrieve. I'm winding that bait in, not as fast as I can, but just to where I'm getting it to where it's going, and I can feel the action of the lure working my rod tip. If they're not hitting that, I'll slow it down to a medium retrieve, and if they're not hitting that, I'll throw a pause in there to where the lure kind of stops and starts fluttering, and I'll give it a couple pops. You'll dial it in if you kind of just mix your speeds up. It's just like any other type of fishery. You're mixing your speeds up, trying to figure out what speed they want it at. These flash jigs, or these are laser minnows, but I'm blanking on the name. Promar makes these, Ahi USA makes these flash jigs, just like these. And I've been to the beach where they're not touching the crocodile, they're not touching lucky crafts or your jerk baits, they're not touching anything. And I'll throw one of these guys on, and I can cover a lot of water because, pass that back, sir. These they can make real small but heavy, and you can launch it way past the breakers. And the way I like to fish these is almost like when I'm pausing that crocodile, but these will sink a lot faster. Throw way out there, real slow retrieve on that. And as soon as I kind of feel bottom, pop. And these are much more aggressive pops. I'll pop it a little harder to get it up off the bottom, and it'll flutter back down. And we've been down there where he's throwing a crocodile, doesn't get bit, those are getting munched. And it's just a fun way to get them, man. They smoke those lures, they hit them hard like a freight train, and it's just a fun way to fish. That I'll give it a little more of a hook set other than that corvina. I won't do a sweeping one, but I'll give them a little juice just to make sure I drive that hook home. I'm gonna go to those last. Am I going too fast? Everyone good? Okay. Lucky craft or jerk baits. These are lucky crafts. Actually, these work just as good as your lucky crafts, except they're about $10 cheaper. These target everything with that, man. If I'm throwing one of these though, I'm throwing it in this bone white color. I love that little orange up in there. So when they put like a little red or orange up in the front of your bait like that, what it's representing is a stressed out bait fish. Because if you ever see a bait fish that's stressed out, its gills flare out and you can see the red in their gills. So that's exactly what they're going for with that bait. You can fish these fast, slow. You can fish it however you want. You can fish it like you're fishing largemouth bass, like a jerk bait. But when I'm fishing these, it's a constant retrieve. I'm trying to keep that bill buried in the sand so it's kicking up a bunch of dust and debris, because your halibut will key in on that. They'll see that. You'll see a lot of these commercial guys, they'll go out with these big lead balls and fish the harbor. And what they're doing is they're bouncing that, and what it's doing is stirring up all the silt and the mud on the bottom of the harbor. And the halibut see that, and they key in on that and want to see what's going on. And they see a little bait there, they're going to swoop it up. You can also get big surf perch on that, big yellowfin croaker. Corvina will smoke that every now and then, but it's just a fun bait to catch. And like I said, when you're lure fishing, you're covering water. You're not just sitting there soaking a bait. Cast, what I like to do, yeah. That's your style, that's your style. But I like to make a cast. Once it gets in, I'll take 2 steps. Cast, 2 steps. I'll cover a mile of beach doing that. These are something that we just got into at Patrick's he did a nonprofit surf fishing tournament for Sport Fishing Conservancy. God, I'm terrible today. For the Sport Fishing Conservancy, and all we brought was a freshwater box that we had, and these were in there, and I go, you know what, man, let's throw it around, see if that works. We ended up catching leopard sharks, we caught rays on it, we caught corvina, what else did we catch? Halibut. And the more I think about these, throwing these in the surf, it just makes sense that they work. What they are lipless crankbaits. And they have like a little knock in them, but they sink fast. You can keep them right on the bottom to where they're stirring up when they're kicking, they're stirring up that sand. Just makes sense to throw in the surf. Like I said, our little experiment turned out very, very well. It produced a lot of fish. And I mean, my brother got tired of throwing that thing because he was catching big rays on it. They're kicking his butt on 12-pound tests. Other than that, guys, I mean, I've covered everything that's up here. Do you guys have any questions? Go ahead.
So while Philip answers some questions, I can thank you for visiting Friedman Adventures. We've got all kinds of great content here for you. Hope you can join us again really, really soon. And once again, great job, Philip, on an outstanding seminar. Don't forget, I'll be doing some guiding in surf fishing very soon. If you'd like to get on that list, send me a text to 657-227-6459. Have a great one, everybody. We will see you at Friedman Adventures. Don't forget our October 23rd celebration at 22nd Street Landing. We'll see you there for our 1 millionth view celebration.